quite excited to welcome our presenters, our guests, Tsepo Munama. He's a co-founder of the company called My Smart Cash. Is a fintech startup which is offering cardless transaction. And then we're going to give him an opportunity to tell us a bit about how this application operates or work. And also we welcome Mr. Mababa, who is a senior software developer with more than 10 years of experience. He having experience, of course, in the software development, system administration, and cloud computing, right? And at today's session, we just call it Software Development 101, where we want to build or we want to create an awareness for people who want to be in this environment. Without perhaps wasting lots of time, I really just like to start with Mr. Tsepo so that he can just do a bit of intro about himself, and after that, I will ask Mababa just to introduce himself before we can dwell much. Perhaps just to say, how did you find yourself in the software development industry? Briefly, Mr. Tsepo.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm clear. So my name is Tsepo Munama. I'm very excited to meet you today. So I'm a software engineer, so I studied computer science in TUF University, so that's where my journey started in technology and in software engineering. So I studied computer science, and then my first job I landed was a junior programmer. So that's how I've actually got involved into software development, but it is a software discipline. It is a good field. It is very interesting. So I find it very, 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 very interesting, especially in these days, where technology is used to change people's life. So yeah, great. In a nutshell, I'm excited to be with you.
Great, thanks. Mr. Mababa, from your end, how did you get into this field?
Thank you, Motlokwe. Yeah, just like Tsepo, I mean, I also studied computer science and mathematics. And but initially, I mean, for me, I mean, I've got a background in physics and chemistry, but as soon as I realized how creative the software world is, that's when I switched and went and I studied computer science. And then thereafter, like him, I also became a graduate software developer, and that's how I was able to build my career to this day.
Okay, great, thank you. So now let's start with the basics. What, from people like me who doesn't understand what software development is, in a nutshell, Tsepo, what is software development?
Look, as software development, I think for me it's a discipline in the engineering. So I can say it's an art or process used to develop a software, or a system. In a simple form, I'll give a background where you have a computer, and then that computer is a hardware. But what you see on the computer as the user, you interact with this hardware, you use this hardware, and then what you see on your screen is a software. So the software is actually used to achieve a certain purpose or to achieve a certain business requirement. So normally it's used by, users or the people to interact with the devices. So in a simple form, like you can have an app, like your phone runs a software. There's a software. I'm hoping that we all know that you have Android, you have iOS phones. So those are the software. On top of that, you have different apps. So those are also software. So in a simple form, a software, that's what I've just explained.
Yeah, okay, great. Now, the other thing is, because there is something called computer programming. Mababa, is the software development and computer programming the same thing, or if they are different, what is the difference?
In many cases, these two concepts can be used interchangeably. But if we're to be specific, I mean, computer programming is just part of the process of software development. Like,
all right, yeah. So just to add on, Mr. Mabapa, what you are saying is that software, the programming, basically it's a one, or it's used mostly interchangeably. But if you look at the programming, it's part of software development. Because now software development, it's a discipline. There are processes, there are divisions within the software development, there are roles and so forth. So what you are saying is that programming, it's also part of the software development. And for me, programming, it's when now we are actually clear in terms of what software we need to develop, what process, what should it do, and then we start now coding. So for me, programming, it's more about coding. Now having a team of developers or programmers, now they start, doing the programming or coding, doing those funny things on a computer, and programming, again, sometimes we call it a computer language, So yeah, so that's in a nutshell what programming is.
Yeah. Okay. And then talking about the software, what are the different types of software that one can then develop as a software developer or programmer?
Okay. So look, there's different types of softwares. So you have, I'll start with the legacy softwares, where you have your desktop applications that normally runs on your computer. You also have websites. So I'm aware that most of us, we know websites, we interact with websites quite a lot, So most business, they have websites. So those are some of the types of the software. But interestingly, we have now what we call mobile apps. Nowadays, everything is about apps. I want an app that does this and this. So an app as well is also one type of a software, so yeah, but those are very interesting, apps or types of softwares that we have recently. The websites and the mobile apps. I don't know if Mabapa is still around to add.
Yes, I'm I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, just to add on what Tsepe has said, is that, at the highest level, you could also categorize them into three. To say you've got system software, you've got programming software, and you've got application software. And system software, you're talking about your operating systems like Windows, Linux, Android, and so on. And then you could also talk about the drivers. People who work with computers, they've got drivers that they install on computers so that computers can work, such as display, USB, and so on. And programming software, these are the tools that programmers use to develop software. And of course, then you've got application software, which is what Tsepo was explaining, where you've got applications like web applications, website, mobile apps, and so on. And the reason I take it to that level is that, the skills that you require might differ slightly for someone who's developing an OS and someone who's developing maybe a mobile app. So you might be you might find yourself using different programming languages and so on. But all in all, I think Tsepo has captured it very well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mababa. Now, the software we're talking about, we are developing, right? Software being website, systems, and application. Then the question may be, what are the languages? What do you use to program this application or systems? What type of languages do we have out there, Mababa?
So yeah, in terms of languages, Motlokwe, so we've got what we call low-level languages, and this here I'm referring to things like machine language, because computers don't understand the languages that we speak, so they understand the language in zeros and ones. Hence, they talk about bits and so on. Therefore, we've got those languages that are very close to what the computer can understand, like machine language, assembly languages, and so on. But then in most cases, we're not gonna be using low-level languages. We're using high-level languages. And here you're talking about languages that are more closer to English, if I may put it that way. So you'll see words like for, while, and this if, and so on. And those are English type words where you can understand what is going on. So here we're talking about, if you look at most popular languages, that if you learn them today, you are sort of on a path. Then you have to look at languages like maybe Java, if you think about object orientation, and you might think about languages like C++, languages like C#. And then if you are on the web development space, you also need to know about other languages like that are used specifically for front-end web development, like maybe JavaScript and so on. And then I think, Tsepo, if you can just add this other,
yes. I think you've covered most of them, but also we have languages like Python, so which is, mostly adopted. I think you've covered JavaScript. We have HTML, so that is, I think, mostly used on the website. So, but I think, yes, as Mabapa said, you also have those core languages, which he mentioned, C++, C#, and the Java. And then others are very light languages, where you can learn quickly, and on those ones, you don't really need, that deep skills, or, knowledge, or have that logic to, to be working with C++ and C# and so forth. So yeah, those are the most recently used languages, Motlokwe. I think JavaScript, Python as well, it's coming, it's becoming dominant.
Yeah. Now, talking about the web, there was a question from Tavan. Just check his surname or his full name. I think Taban J. Roberts. I think he's with us here, right? He sent us an email just so that we can ask this question. You guys talking about the web, we're having the web application or development. His question, I think he's posted us two questions to us, right? Which framework work best for software development? And his second question is, between web application programming interface, API, and the web app development, which one is at the apex level of software development? So the first question is, which framework works best for software development? Or between, actually it's a continuation, between web API and web app development. Mr. Tabang, I saw you are here. If you want to add on this question, you can let us know. But maybe Tsepo, you can take this question.
All right. So I think, look, in terms of the framework, I think there are a number of frameworks. In fact, there are a lot of frameworks that are used, currently. For example, myself, I'm a Microsoft, developer, so I use a .NET framework, and on the website, I use the MVC, but the concept of MVC framework, I see it's also used in PHP, and also on the open source, field. So there's more frameworks that you can use depending. There's heavy frameworks like .NET framework. It's a bit heavy. And then there's also a light framework, which is .NET Core. I think everyone now is trying to move to .NET Core. in terms of Microsoft. But look, there are also a lot of frameworks, that you can use that are very light. I don't know what Mabapa is actually using. Maybe you can add onto that.
Yeah, thanks, Epo. I mean, I'm also a Microsoft developer, so I'm probably using the same tools as you are. But just to add, I mean, a framework, there isn't a single framework that you can point to and say, this is the best framework for developing software. So you always pick a framework depending on what work you want to achieve. For instance, I mean, if you want to develop a web application, you might pick an MVC framework, like maybe ASP.NET MVC, or if you're using PHP, you could pick any of the available PHP MVC frameworks, and that would work well in that space. But there's other frameworks, like maybe in the same application, you might need to store data and retrieve data from a database, and there you might use another framework for accessing the data. So meaning you could use 4 or 5 frameworks within the same application, and each one of them would be used for a specific thing. I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, there's buzzword currently with things like JavaScript frameworks like Vue.js, Angular, and all those things. So all those are frameworks. You just need to pick the one that works for your own environment. But in the main, I think for anyone to be successful, you probably need to understand MVC frameworks. You need to understand JavaScript frameworks, maybe one of them, like, let's say, Vue.js or Angular.js. And then you also need to understand 1 or 2, what you call object relational mapping frameworks, like maybe DEPA or entity framework and so on. So you really need to understand 1 or 2 that you can then use in your application, but the rest will just they are similar in most cases. But I don't think there's a single one that you can point and say this is the framework.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I think he further asked to say, between web API and web app development, which one is as I mentioned, I think the one that is really out there, Apex level of development. So I'm not sure that question is clear. Is that clear? Maybe you can proceed, Mababa, regarding that.
Okay. Yeah, so I think it's clear. So basically, when you talk about, so first you need to understand what is the difference between the two for the benefit of others. I mean, when you talk about web application, mostly you're referring to an application that a human being can use. They can click the buttons, they can do this and that on the web with that web application. But when you talk about web API, you're actually referring to an application that is going to be consumed by other applications. So this is system-to-system communication. So from a developer point of view, or from, I mean, if I wanted to consume, let's say, Facebook, and I'm a developer, I want to query Facebook so that I can maybe display the latest post, then I might be interested in the API, that the web API that they've got. But if I just want to post the status, I'm just an ordinary user, I just want to post the status, I would be more interested in the web app, so that I can just log in and post my status. But I think if you have to think about which is at the apex, you might say web API is, because there is a lot of collaboration between systems and so on. So that might, so in terms, from a developer point of view, I think understanding web API is extremely important in today's world, where everything communicates with everything with what we call fourth industrial revolution.
Okay, great. Tabang is here. Are you satisfied with the questions, with the answers, or do you want to expand your question? You can just unmute yourself, or if you might have a question, please.
No, the explanation was quite well placed. I think I'm quite satisfied with how they explained everything. Okay,
great. Thank you very much. So now, and then of course, friends who also joined, just like Taban did. If you might have a question, please just drop it on the chat, or just let us know if you want to ask any question, right? So we will proceed from that point. We talked about the languages, the object-oriented and low-level being assembly language and all that. And then my other question is that how did they really differ? I think you touched on it, Tsepo, about the one being drop, drag and drop and all that. Can you just expand it a bit there? How is this soft programming languages differ?
All right. Okay, just to maybe expand on what Mabapa said, you have low-level languages. Look, like he said, computers do not understand our language, so we have so many languages that we communicate with. So the same way with computers, we need to have a language that the computer can understand so that it can take instruction. So it does basically understand the zeros and ones, which is binary language. And then from there, you have a low-level languages, like assembly languages that, that are used at the operating system level. So, and then those are the languages that are used to actually control the computer or the hardware. So we normally call them the operating systems. And then you also have now the languages that are used to develop business applications. So those are high-level languages. So they are actually used to develop business application that will run on top of the operating system. And then you have such as C++, Java, and so forth. So that's how they actually differ. And then, I mean, choosing a language, like Mabapa said, it's about what type of a software you need to be developing. So if it's a business application that you need to develop, you're probably going to use the high-level languages, or you want to use those frameworks. Currently, what's very interesting now is that you also have frameworks that can actually simplify without you understanding what a C++ is and Java is. There are those frameworks that you can use. Those are we normally call them the drag and drops. So you can just design an app. For example, it's a Wix. I think maybe if you know Wix websites, so you have this tool that you can just develop your website, as quick as like 5 minutes to develop a website. So those are some of the frameworks or tools that you can use. But behind that, those tools, there are languages, high-level languages or even low-level languages that are used, and as a user, you don't need to know about that. So yeah, I don't know if Mabapa, you want to add if I've just missed something here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've touched on a lot of things there, but maybe I can just add one or two to say, I mean, the programming languages themselves, they, like he said, you choose one for a specific thing that you want to do. For instance, if you want to develop a database and want to create a database, data out of the database, you're going to use a language such as SQL because it's geared for that sort of thing. And if you want to manipulate, let's say, user interface on your web application dynamically, you would then go with JavaScript and other related languages that work in the web browser. So you always choose a language based on exactly what you want to achieve. But there's those languages that you might need to learn because they open a path. For instance, I mean, most people who study computer science, they would start off learning C++. And the reason for that is because C++ is not too low level, and then but it also teaches you about a little bit of low level stuff, So you, in terms of choosing which programming language and how they differ, you just need to maybe choose one, learn that programming language, and then it will open up other programming languages for you. Thanks, Mr. Mdogo.
Okay, great. Now, thank you. I think your colleagues or friends, you elaborated on it, right? Now, I'm here. I like what you guys talking about, and then I want to check. I want to get into this environment, right? Where do I start? Is the degree diplomas necessary? Because we heard about, Bill Gates started their journey in the software development industry in their garage and all that. What is your view there, Tsepo? Is the degree necessary, diploma necessary to enter in this environment?
All right. Yeah. Obvious, the degree, it gives you an advantage. It is necessary. And also, I'm saying that because now you look at the degree basically what they teach you about, it's about problem solving skills. So where you will be able to do some low level languages, and be able to solve problem, do mathematics and so forth. But what degrees seek to achieve is to give you the logic, problem solving skills. So with a degree, it makes it very, 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 very easy to learn any languages, because a language, it's about complexity. So if you've got a degree, it's easier to actually learn those languages. But also if you have a diploma, you can also still learn those languages. And perhaps even if you don't have, any qualification, you can still learn those languages. It also depends with you as a person, how passionate or, if how can you solve problems, your problem solving skills and so forth. So for me, a degree, yes, it's important. It gives you advantage, but also a degree, I think for me also, it's required for certain types of applications. For example, you have mission critical applications, that are actually used in the hospitals, in the military and so forth. So in there, I think you need to have a degree, because those systems are just complex by nature, But if you look at mobile apps, if you were to maybe want to be a mobile app developer, you don't really need to have a degree or have a qualification, but having some qualification will give you an advantage.
Yeah, Mababa, is there anything that you want to add on top of that?
Yes. What I want to add is that, you would read in many places, people say, no, you can just learn software development by just Googling how to do this, how to do that. That works. But I think what is important is that a software that you develop, you must understand that it's going to be used by people that people are going to trust it. So it must be able to produce what people expect. It must be able to protect people. It must be able to have a sound security and all these other things around it. Therefore, you don't necessarily gonna learn some of these things by just Googling how to write an if statement. So you probably also need to read books about programming. It could be a classic book that maybe was published maybe even in 1980s or early 90s, whatever, but you need to read programming books. And like he said, there's nothing you can do to replace formal education, because the thing with the formal education in a book is that they package the concept nicely for you. But if you just go to Google, you get one sentence. It's not necessarily the whole thing about whatever. Let's say you're talking about security. It's not a whole package about security. But if you go to school, if you read books, if you do, you do formal things, then you become a better software developer. Because software development, like we said in the beginning, is not just about writing the code. It's also a process, because you need to identify what the requirement is. You need to understand exactly what that requirement means. What sort of architecture, what sort of design, what sort of security you need to put in place, what frameworks to use, what programming. So all those things, you only know them by either studying or even just reading books, not necessarily by just Googling how to do an if statement, how to do a while statement. Thanks,
Yeah.
Motlokwe.
Okay, great. And then friends who are here with us, is there anyone with any question regarding what we already just discussed? We talked about what software development is, what are different languages in there, and then how do we acquire the knowledge? That's what the friends were just alluding to. Any question that one may have with regard to what the colleagues already just talked about. Right? So if you have, please just let us know so that we can accommodate your question, right? But other thing is, of course, not all of us will have opportunity to have a formal education. And then I'm here, I want to start. I know, of course, formal education is going to give you maybe the fundamentals, the core elements around software development, but I want to start. I'm here, I want to start. I'm on my gap year, or I don't have funds to go to college or university to attain a degree or diplomas. How can you advise me to start, Mr. Tsepo?
Look, I mean, you starting, is the most, difficult thing, especially in a software, So I think for me is that when you start, I think there must first be a need, to develop a system or an app. So that's the starting point, and then perhaps then you need to do a research. How do you start? What type of an application? And then what languages, what sort of a team also, it's also necessary. Who do you need in a team? So if you're starting now, there's a need and you want to start, put up your team together, make sure that you have a balanced team. You might not know to code, but someone else might know to code. So you need to have those kind of people in your team, and then that will give you an advantage, because now, like we said, software development, it's a process. There's different types of roles, processes that we need to follow. So you need to have those skills. But also, yes, do a research. You can learn. The nice part, if you want to start and then you are clear that maybe you are developing a mobile app, now you can just maybe read materials, online materials, how to develop a mobile app or iOS app or Android app. There are also tools online like Microsoft, there's Udemy. I think in the Microsoft, there's a Cloud Society. It's they're offering online course or online Microsoft University course. And funny enough, it's free. So you can learn anything, it's free. You can learn any types of software in the Microsoft space. You can learn architect, you can learn everything for free, and you only pay to write an exam, but you don't really need to write an exam if you can develop an app. So that's how you can start. Another way, which is recently, the trends now, how the people start is that you might have a competition or a hackathon. Recently, we see a lot of hackathons where people gather at a certain place. They require to develop or have an idea, and then they need to develop that into a software or into an app in 3 days, non-sleep and so forth. So perhaps those are some of the things that you can start. You can use those initiatives to start. We do have quite a number of hackathons around, across the country, from government to corporate and so forth. So that will also give you experience, in terms of the software, what it involves, and, the pain and the sweat, the excitement, and, so for me, yeah, I will encourage people to go into the hackathons, because now it will make you are then moving out of your comfort zone. And once you are in the hackathon, you are forced to start. You have to start your application. So perhaps maybe for me, it's a good way to start.
Yeah, okay, great. Mababa, anything to add on?
No, nothing there. Let me sum up.
Okay, great. Thanks. I think you touched on the issue of Tsepo. You touched on the issue of the certification. Mababa, I wanted to check, is there in a software development space, right? Certification really that necessary? I'm a graduate. I've got the IT, computer science, or information systems. Do I still require to do some certification of some sort?
Okay, look, Motlokwe, software development is mostly about a person, right? But before you can showcase who you are, you need to put something on the table. In this case, your resume has to say what your skills are. So if you come in, you've got 2 years experience, I've got 2 years experience, but on top of that, I've got 6 other certifications. So they are more probably going to consider the guy with the certifications, because it's not just, I mean, he's got the same experience as you, but he's got extra things that he can bring on the table. So it is, I would say, yes, getting certificate is important in terms of how you want to develop your career. And also, I mean, because software development is not only about getting a job, you can also run your own business as a software developer. You can build solutions for people to consume. So for you to convince the next person that yes, this software is sound and good, you also need to produce something and say, you know what, I'm not just Mahadi, I've got maybe this certificate in C#, I've got a degree, computer science degree, I've got business, this and that. So that shows also confidence to people who are going to consume your product. So getting certifications, getting education and attending courses and so on builds on top of your I mean it's going to propel you into a better career, or if you become a business person, into better deals in business.
Oh, yes, great, thanks. Now, talking about the, being prepared to be, to get in that environment in terms of the degrees and certification, I just wanted to check now, what makes someone to be a good software developer? Tsepo, in addition to the certification and the degrees, what more one has to offer or to have?
All right. So yeah, I think, like I said, the degree, it's an advantage. Like most commonly we have people with computer science that are doing very well in software development. You have software engineers that are doing very well, but you also have mathematicians that are also doing very well. So for me, at the heart of this is problem-solving skill. So if you've got that, then you can do very well in this field, as a software developer, and then also you have certificates that are offered at FBT or online and so forth, as a start as well, that can put you into an advantage. So the only, I think, challenge part here, Motlokwe, is that industries are also different. Like, as much as you need to have certificates, upgrade, and so forth, it also depends with the industries. In the engineering space, that's where more complex systems are developed, and that's where now you need to have that degree and a good problem-solving skills. But in other fields, other corporates that don't have complex softwares, having certificates, you can also be a good software developer. I'm looking at Android developing apps, so sometimes it doesn't need that intensive experience, or skill or a degree and so forth. So yeah, you also need to look at the field that you need to go into.
Yeah. But anything to add there, or maybe I can expand the question that you're talking about different fields, engineering and other things, right? Getting into the career options within software development. What are those options that, if maybe I'm as a student, or I want to venture in, what do I only have to be programmer, or what else do I have within this environment, software development? What are other roles or other career options that I might explore within software development?
Okay. Thanks, Motlokwe. Just on the first one about what makes a good software developer. Look, I mean, I don't know if you know, I mean, some years ago, I think 3 years or so, there was a story about, I think it was VW, where they were testing carbon emission. So during the test, the carbon emission was very low, but in practice, then it was high. And then I think it was in the US, and they started investigating that, and then they realized that something does not add up here. So, and what came up was that in the inquiry, the guys at the top, these are your top management. They said, no, actually, it's the software developers. They've developed the software to do that. That during test, it emit low carbon, and then during practice, then there's high carbon. So you can see that as a software developer, I mean, if you allow such things to be in your software, then you are not being professional. Therefore, I would say a good software developer is someone who's professional. I mean, if you look at engineering, there's some checks and balances, and there's bodies and all this that control how to behave in that space. I mean, if you want to become a medical doctor, there are some requirements. You need to pass a 6-year degree or something like that, or you need to adhere to this code of conduct and so on. But with software, we don't have such things. We actually rely on individuals to be professional. So a good software developer first has to be a professional and understand that what I'm writing could impact people's lives. So I think that is very, very important, just to add on what he said. So, but in terms of other things you can do in the software development space, I mean, we've got many other skills that are required. For instance, in the process of developing a software, you've got people who take the requirement, which is what the business wants, and they will analyze that requirement. I mean, that normally, I mean, we'll call those people analysts or requirement analyst, or I don't know what new ways are about that.
Yeah, but systems analyst, business analyst, and all that. Yeah,
and so on. Yeah, so those people also play into that space of software development. But you also have got people who test the software, because after writing the software, we need to then get it tested to ensure that it does what we are set out to do. So those are, I mean, we call QX specialists, testers, and so on. And those people don't necessarily write the code, but they also get involved in the space of software development. But on top of that, you also have the other top management, like software managers. You've got you've got project managers, team managers, you've got product managers, and so on. So actually, the career options in the software development, you even get to the C-suites, where you've got CTOs, you've got CIOs, you've got all those C-suite, positions within companies. So it's not just about writing code, but it's also just writing what is required also in a better way. If I may just share with you. I mean, for instance, I mean, most of us, when we start off, we are mostly attracted by code. So we become coders, which are the people who write code. And normally at that point, we are not in a professional space. Maybe we are at school, or we are at our homes, so we're just writing apps and so on. But then we get into into companies where we become a little bit professional, and then we get into things like graduate. You maybe become a junior developer or a graduate developer. You do well, you get into a space of software developer and senior software developer. You can be a technical lead, you can be an architecture on the solution side, where you care about everything in the business, or you're a software architect who designs how the software should be developed and so on. And like I said, there's managers and the C positions that you can also do in that space.
Okay, right, great. Seppo, like talking about C roles, I think we see you as CTO. What is that? What does that entail in relation to software development?
Okay, so CTO basically it's at the executive level. So where I'm looking after technology in general, everything technology, including software development. But I think my passion is in the software. Normally, I'll manage the software project. I'll be the project manager for the software, and for the team. But I'll also do coding as well, to make sure that the software is well coded. I'm also doing software architect, just to make sure that I lay the base, the ground of that software. So maybe just to add, there's more roles like Mababa mentioned, especially nowadays, where we see also the graphic design, for example. Graphic designer, they also now becoming part of the software development team, where we are required to develop nice apps, with nice look and feel. And then the expectation is that we need to have someone, doing our screens design, looking after the look and feel. We normally call them the UX designers, but also we've also seen big data coming into the IT space and the software environment. We've seen the social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, and so forth. So social media has brought in this big data. So we also have, careers in data mining and data analysis. So there's a lot of careers that you can look at. We also have Internet of Things as well, which is now interesting, where devices communicate to one another. So, and then we also have artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so forth. So there's a lot of areas that one can pick from in this industry.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll talk about this fourth industrial revolution just later on. Now, I just want to say, in our attendance, right, we have the founder and the CEO of the team which developed the application we are using here. Mr. Dixon, I'm not sure whether you're still with us here. I wanted to check from your side, right? Because we are still talking about the issue of the career options within the software development. I understand your company which developed this imbizo.com, you are having a pool of IT personnel performing different roles within your company, right? Are you there? I want to ask you a question to say, as a CEO of the software development company, what do you do there? Or alternatively, what are the other career options that maybe you just want to enlighten us on, if you are here? Okay, I will come back to him again, just so that we can I just want us to have a very clear picture in terms of what are this software, what's happening really within software development, because as I said, this is the product of the software developer, right? And then we are with him here, so we thought perhaps he can just share us some light around that. So the other question I wanted to check, I think, about the specialization within software. I think you colleagues already talked about the business analyst, being the tester, graphic designer, or as you said, you what UIX designers and all that. My question is that do you have any age restrictions with regards to enter in this environment? Oh, yes. Sapo, you will expand a bit from what Mababa said, yeah?
I mean, the simplest answer is that no. I mean, there isn't. I mean, you'll be surprised, Motlokwe, that when you maybe pump on your brakes in your car is executing some code that might be written by a 17-year-old. So that means your life is in the hands of, or the fingers, as they say, of a 17-year-old who wrote that code to control your the brakes in your car. But I mean, there isn't a limit, Mr. Motlokwe. So anyone with ambition, with a skill, with something to offer can enter into the software space. And like I said, I mean, other people get into the software space for business reasons. So you could be a farmer, and then you might have to maybe develop an app that you want to use in your farm, and so on. And you might, such people, I mean, might go and learn a skill or whatever, and then they start developing software for their businesses. So there isn't really a limit in terms of the age. I mean, either when you start, or I mean, is it like teenagers, or even in your 40s, 60s, people still are writing software in that. In fact, if you look at as you grow within the space, you find out that there's certain skills that only older people have. For instance, I mean, if you look at programming languages like COBOL, these are old programming languages that are still used in the banks. So you'll find that only older guys are interested in those things because they've learned those things when they grew up, and then the newer guys don't even want to touch those languages. So there's no age restrictions in this space.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, great. Tempo, anything to add there? In particular, looking at this COBOL assembly language and all that, are they still there? Are they still applicable? Are they still used in the industry?
Look, funny enough, they are still there. I remember 4 years ago, 5 years in fact, I used to work at a bank, Standard Bank, developing software for ATMs and so forth. And, I know the main core systems at the bank are still on mainframe, so there's COBOL used and there's all these old languages that are used. So they are still there, in the industry, but the drive is that there should be a migration into new technologies and so forth. So, and then coming back to the issue of age, there's no age restriction, like Mabapa said, and hence now you see the need now for our education system to actually recognize or introduce coding at our schools, and they introduce it at basic education at the primary and so forth. So there is no really age limit. And then we have seen, other good apps, games that were developed by, 6-year-olds and so forth. So there is no restriction. And perhaps one can just develop a software to be consumed. Like Mabapa said, you can develop a software to be consumed by people. So you don't really need, I'll say to get to corporate level first, or to get to university, so there's no restriction. You can develop an app and then people use it, and then that becomes your business. Yeah. So yeah, that's how it is.
Okay, great. I think the friends will see that software development, it seems, is not something that you do to be so what you call 9 to 5, right? As I mentioned, Sepolebilo, he formed his own business related to the software development. The Wilson Dixon is one of the guys who also, I worked with him, I think, 2 years back with one of the consulting industry, and then he decided to go out and do his own thing. Today, we are using the product that he's developed by himself and his team. So I think this is telling us that there's really lots of opportunities out there for entrepreneurs, people who just want to change the world through development, right? And now, because we wanted, my aim is that I wanted to get people to get understanding and just to get the feeling of how is software development. And Tsepo, I understand you wanted to show us some of the basics just using my smart cash, your company, in terms of that development, just to share with us some of those things. Will you able to still do that?
Yeah, I can show you.
Yeah, so I thought maybe we can use well, you just tell me. I wanted to explore that constant. You touched on the issue of, those fourth industrial revolution and all that. I thought maybe we can just exhaust that, and then after 5 minutes or so, we're going to give you opportunity just to show us the real life stuff that you guys are doing there, so that we can just get the feeling. I believe that is fine. So I just wanted to maybe just prepare yourself for that demo or demonstration that you want to give us. When you are still just doing brush some stuff from your side. I just wanted to talk about now we hear there's lots of brouhaha, right, around fourth industrial revolution. So I wanted to check, how is that affect, or how does that affect or software development fit in within this revolution? Yeah, Tsepo.
Look, I mean, fourth industrial revolution, it's quite a big topic now. We've seen across the world, even in parliament. So The fact of the matter is that it's gonna affect our lives, the way we do things, as human beings. So I think for me, it's gonna affect, but for me, I see it as a complement or improvement, or simplification of some of the things that we actually do. Some of the things that might not be necessary or time consuming that we just need to automate. So for me, it's going to affect our life, but it's more of improvement to simplify our life as human beings.
Okay, Mababa, what's your view there? Software development within this coming era, are we, or maybe other thing, are we already in the fourth industrial revolution era, or where are we, Mababa? Maybe you can just touch on that. And I'm also just inviting the friends who joined us here, just to join us here when we discuss this. Mababa?
Yeah, I think we are inside that revolution, Motlokwe. But I mean, something to highlight is that at the center of that revolution is the software. So therefore, that means as we expand, this revolution expand, that means software developers are going to be at the center. Therefore, there's going to be a lot of maybe a need for more and more software developers. So I think the space will still expand, but we are actually still inside. I mean, we're already, I think, in the revolution, and I think the time to start, if anyone want to enter the software development world, I think, now is the right time.
Yeah. Any other comments from you, friends who joined us, with regard to this fourth industrial revolution? We are talking about cloud computing. We're talking about artificial intelligence. Internet of Things, big data, machine learning. What is your view there? What is your feeling, or do you have any question regarding that? Taban? I'm just cornering you here. Okay, well, maybe we're still thinking around that. How is our current environment of this COVID affect your or software development? Mababa.
Yes, Motlokwe, before I touch on that, I see there's a question from Prince Malekodi. I don't know if you are still coming to it on the chat.
Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry. When a software developer wakes up to go to work every day, what is it that they normally do on a daily basis? I think that this is one of the brilliant questions. But you can take it.
Yeah, so we do, I mean, I know many people in the past used to believe that we sit in the basement the whole day. But yeah, that is not the case. So basically, I mean, first of all, you must understand the work we do is to help businesses to achieve their goals. So our work involves getting business problems. Maybe a business has got a problem they want to solve through a software. Then our job is then to take that problem, then analyze what will be required to solve that problem. And then thereafter, we will then design a solution that fit into the business, into that particular business space. And then we'll then write code. So writing code itself might just be a little bit of what else other things we do. Then, but if you look at today's world, actually there's no longer someone they call software developer alone. So we work in a space where you need also do operationals. So we actually go to work, we maintain existing softwares, we look at the environment, we plan what happens if this software fails. For instance, what happens if the software that I've deployed delete all the data for the client? What do I do? So you need to plan for those things. You need to test that those plans work. And this you can do maybe on weekly or monthly, whatever is allowed within the space. So there's a lot that we do, even things that do not necessarily result in a specific software, but they actually are a bigger picture to say this software need to exist, need to make sure that it works in the way that it was intended. So when we get to office, I mean, mostly, yes, we'll open our laptops and start writing code and so on. But there's more that we do than just typing in code. We also look at other processes around the software itself.
Yeah.
So your question was around what, the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes. Can we just pay that one when you're still talking about this one, right? I wanted to check around, this open source software. Where we still have such thing? What is your view around that software? I mean, open sources.
No, I mean, open source is nothing except to say it is a free software. So someone writes a software and they give it out for free. And that's what open source is. So open source is nothing more than that. And I think it's very, very important because there are so many solutions that people do. And if they don't release them to us for free, and maybe we need to always buy little things, then it will make it difficult for software developers to survive in the space that we work in. So in fact, it's encouraged that as a software developer, you need to get involved in those projects, because those projects are available online. You can join them, you can pull out and then do what, maybe you say, okay, I want to modify a little thing here in this project and I want to commit it back to the project. So I think it's encouraged that as a software developer, you need to be able to play in that space as well. But there's something that I remember now. And I think I saw this, I was watching a video a few weeks ago. So the people are talking about, as a software developer, you need to have a working pet project. And a working pet project here, they mean a product that you develop on your own that is going to do something specific. And then maybe, and they say actually this, I mean, if you've got that piece of software, you can actually showcase it in an interview space and say, okay, I'm a software developer. This is what I was able to do. And this is the approach I took and so on. And I think those are the spaces that people need to get involved in. And I think even open source also plays in that space. If you are involved in an open source project, you can always talk about it in your interview and so on. So open source is extremely important. We consume a lot of open source applications and libraries in order for us to be able to develop our own custom applications within the companies that we work for.
Yeah, thank you. I think you really shared very critical thing there around, guys doing their own, or call it small projects, so that they can able to demonstrate those things if maybe one goes to interviews and all that. Sorry, Tsepo, I think you wanted to add something?
Yes, I just wanted to answer that in terms of the COVID now, how it actually affected the space, in the software development. So I think there's more demand, already there is more demand in terms of software developers out there, because of now fourth industrial revolution. And now COVID has just added more, because now just look at government level, where we were in a hard lockdown, and then we cannot go and do services, interact with the government and so forth. So that actually, actually the expectation was that then the government needs to, develop what we call more services or online services, sort of to still be able to service, the citizens, still be able to do service delivery and so forth. So, and that, put more demand of software developers, because now there's more services that we need to develop at the government level so that we can interact with each other, not physically online, where I can, for example, apply for an ID, at Home Affairs. We've seen that. We've seen also the company registrations at CIPC, developing an online service portal where you can actually register a company, in 5 minutes. You can also get a bank account, you also get a tax number immediately within that 5 minutes. But also, most importantly, it costs you 175. So those are the types of services that are more in demand, that, also put more demand of software developers. So for me, I think the pandemic also actually added to the demand that we already had, through the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Friends, please ask any question that you might have. This space is yours. We are here so that we can just, enlighten one another. Because from my side, when I completed also computer science, the only thing I wanted or I knew was that I want to be C++ programmer, or I want to be databases. But I think friends here, they explain that within software development itself, which is part of the whole IT, there are still branches within it. You can be the tester, doing a QA, quality assurance related, business analysis, graphic designs, and all that, right? So please type your question there, or you can unmute yourself and ask the question. Now I want to, because we want to practicalize this thing. Software development is not just you are not there as a priest to talk the whole day about software development. We want to give this opportunity to Tshepo so that he can just demonstrate all some of the things he just want to share with us, practical things that they are doing within his company, so that you can just get that fair understanding in terms of what needs to happen. Yeah. Over to you. Yeah, thank you. I think I can see you already sharing there.
All right. No, that's fine. If you do have any questions, feel free to actually ask, like Motlokwe said. So in terms of practical things, maybe let me also add to that question of what do you do as a software developer? Well, being a typical software developer, like myself, sometimes I lock myself in a garage and just do coding, code, and then have meetings with the team, just to status check how far we are, and then we code, fix defects, and so forth. So that's being a typical developer. But of course, there's a lot of things that, being in a software development, you can actually do. So here, just to on the basic level, about software development, I think at the coding level. So what I've shared here, it's a screen of a tool called Visual Studio that I use to code in the Microsoft space. There are so many tools that you can use, and so forth. So like Mabapa said, it's about picking the right tools, for the right software. So I use Microsoft Visual Studio here. And then as you can see here on the orange side, here on the left side, it's a screen of a mobile app. So you can see this is a layout, this is a screen of a mobile app that I've just designed, and then this mobile app has got a login button, register, contact us, settings, and so forth. So this could be a drag and drop to design this form, but behind this form, obviously, there's what we call a schema. So this could look funny for someone that does not understand programming, on the right side here. And then from here, now you also have something at the back, the logic. The logic. So this is what we normally call, it could be front end, but it's at the back of the form. So this is where now you need to be typing your instructions, what needs to happen when this button is actually clicked, login. So this is where the real coding happens at the back, and so forth. And this is where you push information back to the database and so forth. So that is more basic of the tool that you need to use. And then you have the form that you need to design. And then you also need to do some logic behind that form. So that is coding. But if you look at this now, the ideal is that someone that does not understand programming, it's it just is funny things, funny characters, but this produces an application. So what you see here, it's our website as My Smart Cash. So also the website is also produced from this tool here. We've produced a website. So this is what normally people see, on their phones, on their laptops and so forth, logging into the website and so forth. So, but this is actually coming from this, which is coding, and then you have different types of apps. This is just a website, but you also have like now the Imbizo, it's a platform where it's a communication platform, where we can have meetings, online meetings and so forth. Behind this, there's a code, there's a code which could be similar to this one, they could be using a different framework for that. And then you also have like, I can say you have Take a Lot website. Let me just quickly go to Take a Lot. So basically, Motlokwe, just to maybe go back to the types of softwares, where you have also what we called the e-commerce platforms, Take a Lot, and then also what I've showing you here, it's a website, it's an online fruit and veg. So it's an e-commerce platform where you can actually go do your shopping, buy your fruit and veg. As you can see here, I can actually go into now I'm in the shops. The same way I'll be in the Food Lovers or a Spa and so forth. I can actually buy my fruit and veg, from my phone or, here at home, at comfort of my home and so forth. So those are the kind of softwares that are developed, but behind.
And maybe just to so this also this Mbeu, is it developed by yourself? I mean, by your team?
Yes. So this is also one of the softwares that we developed, an e-commerce platform by our team.
Yeah. No, proceed. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Yes. So I think the last part that I wanted to show you is that, okay, so from what I've just shown you here, this mobile app here, it's an Android mobile app. It's used by merchants. Merchants is people that sell goods and services, mostly in the rural and the township. They use this to accept payments, cardless payment. They use this to record payments, typical example in the funeral space, we do have funeral parlors that use this app to record cash, payments and so forth. The user then, when they pay, they get SMS notification for payment and so forth. So what you see here is the screen, is the design, the screen that we've been designing. But this obviously produces an app, a mobile app. So a mobile app that you find in the Play Store, we normally go to Play Store and download a mobile app and start using the app. So it also comes from there. So this is the one video from the same app, so that you can see that this is the final product. And then perhaps this has got some flow, some movement, interaction and so forth. So let me just take a 30 seconds just to play this video.
Tutorial video. In this tutorial video, we will show you how to pay for goods at the merchant. Select payments. Select pay for goods. Enter amount and click continue. Enter customer mobile number and click continue. Customer is required to enter PIN and click continue. Select the country you're paying from and click continue. Click confirm to complete payment. You will now receive an SMS as proof of payment. Thank you for watching this My Smart Cash tutorial video. See you on the next video.
All right. Thank you very much. So I think that was more practical, Motlokwe. I don't know if you guys have any questions in terms of, software development and practical examples.
Yeah, thank you. I think the colleagues or friends can see that whatever they are doing, what if they are learning C#, Python, whatever the case may be. I think at least we wanted to say that I think we are at the right track. And what you are doing or what you are trying to do is really valid. You just need to, as they mentioned, that find something to do with the hackathons. That's where you can hone your skill, or you can, you and your friend, or of course alone, have some social issue out there. I think that's one of the things that I would really recommend you guys with this skill, right? There's a lot of social ills out there. Just find one of it and go for it, right? You can see Tsepo here, the exploring the concept around, cutlass transactions, which I think there is a gap and there's a need out there. You see here, Dixon, he saw that in Africa, we do not even have any application or video conferencing solution. And we only know about Zooms and all that, which are coming from other continents. But then he decided to close that gap by what? By developing Imbizo, for example, right? So there are a couple of things, and then now you see that we can buy fruits from the online because of COVID, we cannot travel and all those things. You can do that. So my advice is that find the gap out there. It doesn't have to be in from Harvard book or some researcher out there. You yourself just look around, see what are the issues that you can do. And then just add on what Mababa talked about. Pick up something, develop it so that it's something that you do, it will help you to move to the next step. If maybe you want, as a entrepreneur, you're going forward, you want to get funders and all that, you can be showing them to say, this is some of the systems that I developed. Or if maybe you want some opportunity in the industry, you can show those kind of things through interviews and all that, right? So I wanted to check with Dixon. Dixon, are you there? I wanted just to get your view, right? As I'm saying, we don't want to talk theories here, right? It's people who are there, who are doing this, just to share with us the advice that you can just give us as people who want to enter in this software-related matter. But it seems that maybe he might be away, right? Now, Mababa, we need to, in closing, right? What can you share with us? What advice can you give us as someone who want to go here and then I want to go and start Googling about software development? It's a very general question. I just want to get from your view, what is your advice to us?
Yes, I think if you are starting out, let's say you have not written any code before and you just want to know where to start in terms of programming. I mean, like I said earlier, you just to get a feel of it, you might start with the simplest languages that are easy to learn. Not that they're simple, but they're just easy to learn, like Python. Because it is extremely easy to enter into programming through that route. But over and above that, I think as soon as you get the feeling of what code looks like and so on, you probably want to start reading books around programming and start attending, I think, sessions such as these. I mean, there's so many sessions online that you can attend around software development. So you really just need to get your foot in, and then you must be willing to spend hours learning, because there's a lot to learn. I mean, software development is a creative space, like you saw with that mobile app that Tsepo showed. I mean, you need to design how it's going to look like for the user. You need to design how it's going to interact with the user. So you need to invest a little bit of time in order to learn those things. I think I would actually advise in that way. But Motlokwe, just before I end, I see there was a question here. It was a long one from Joy.
Maybe I can read it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it was in there. So I've already read it. Yeah, you can read it if you want to. Yes.
Oh, yes. So maybe you can. Okay, if you want to add to what we are, I think just to ask him
Yes.
there. Yeah.
So I see he was asking how do you hold the developer to account? So I think he says he's got a software that he wanted to develop or something, and then he outsourced it to a developer. And then you want to know how do you hold a software developer accountable for progress and so on. So I think, I mean, in software development, there are many methodologies that are used. I mean, the processes that are used is what we call waterfall, where someone do one thing and then finishes and go to the next one and so on. But there's also things called agile way of developing, where you take a little piece of the software that the requirement, you analyze that little piece, and then you design and you develop it. So I think if you're in that space of agile, so you could be, it should be easy to track the progress, because on daily basis there should be a new thing that comes in. I'll give you an example. Where I work, we push in, we deploy on average 10 times a day. So in a day we could deploy to production 10 times. That means we make changes 10 times and we get them to our clients in a day. So that, because we're using agile approach. So I mean, depending on which method you use, you might be able to get progress on daily, on weekly, on monthly, or quarterly. But I think most software shops, they go more on the path of agile development methodology. And the other questions in there, I think they're more legal questions about intellectual property being stolen and so on. So I won't be able to comment on those.
Yeah, I can add into that, Mabapa.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think on the legal one, look, I see Joy as actually, won the innovation challenge, So I think one of the important things, especially when you go into the innovation challenge, also perhaps is to maybe looking at protecting the idea first. So, and I believe that maybe at some point, Joy, you will have actually taken steps to maybe protect that idea, do a patent. There's a process called, we do a patent, just to make sure that your idea is patented and it's protected, before you even go to a challenge, innovation challenge, because, once you go into an innovation challenge, you might have actually disclosed, that idea, or the process, and it might already, it's in the public space. But yes, the process is that you can do a patent, file a patent with CIPC. So you can also find a patent attorney, where you actually, then they will assist you to actually go through the idea and make sure that it's protected. They search, across South Africa or SADC or global if the idea doesn't exist and so forth. So that's one way you can actually take to actually protect your idea. And then also, just to add, in terms of holding developers accountable, look, like Mabapa said, there's different types of methodologies. I think for me, it's about project management, methodology that you actually choose, to use, to follow when developing this software. So my advice is that maybe use agile development, because I think it does help in terms of realizing, deliverables, quicker than using the waterfall. And also, one option, I think, for me, pick the right developer, for you, So also, you might need to go to that level where, if this is the right developer, maybe you sort of have partnership, because I think for me and Motlokwe, this has been interesting, to learn that, previously, when you actually studied computer science back then, in the 90s, when you studied computer science, you go out into the industry. There was the most preferred options to hire computer scientists was to be partners, partner, in a business and so forth, so that actually boosted, the corporate, in terms of ensuring that they get the right services, the right IT services and so forth. So for me, we need to look at that, because for me now that is key. You look at now recently, most businesses, they maybe sort of just look at getting developers to develop what they want, and then they can move to the next development and so forth. But being a startup, like Joy, or want to develop an idea, I think for me, you need to look beyond just getting Tshepo to develop your app. You need to maybe look at partnering with Tshepo as a developer, because in that way, then Tshepo becomes, that's part of his business. So the accountability, part, so does no longer rely on you only. So for me, look at that partnership, because I've went through different projects, where you have an idea, you've got a good app, you need to develop, but you don't have a developer, or you lose a developer and so forth, or it doesn't work. But the most common one that works, and of course, I know people don't want to go that level, is to partner with developer. In that way, it's less stress. So I think that's my advice for Joy to look at that, to mitigate that risk.
Thank you, friends. Right, there's a question from Silas here. He's saying, is there any opportunities for hacking here in South Africa?
Yes, no. There's always opportunities. Remember, sometimes hacking could be regarded as illegal. Well, it's regarded as illegal. So, and hence, maybe you might not know of the opportunities to hack, But hacking, it's about skill. So it's about talent, talent to disrupt or, hack system and so forth. So I think for me, we need to look at opportunity. It's within you. Can you hack my smart cash? Can you hack the bank? Can you, so that is the opportunity for me, even though it's regarded as illegal. So I think for me, do it if you've got a skill. So that's an opportunity. You don't have to wait for anyone or learn it from someone and so forth. Just do it. And then once you've successfully hacked into someone's system, then you can just maybe let them know and then recommend that they need to do improvement. And perhaps that's where then they look at, that opportunity, or give you an opportunity to be part of them. So I think for me, just do it, because it's a skill that you just have to do it. Hack.
Yes, because I know in my team where I work, we have I get there's something called ethical hackers, right?
Yeah.
And then there's some certifications and all that. So perhaps it's something that he can explore. Unless if maybe we are interpreting his question differently, you can just clarify, Silas, if you might still have further questions. And then, right, let's meet next week. Oh, sorry, yes.
All right, it's from Tabang. I'm just saying, in case next week, please dwell on the issue of revenue generation, and maybe get some of the guys to share, like the guys of Imbizo, to share how they generate revenue. because it's a challenge for some of us who are really trying this space. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tabam, for that. Yeah, so I think that I'm going to what we are going to do. We're going to have a maybe session next week that focus primarily around the, as you said, how do I make my software development the business, normal business? Then talking about revenue, expenses, whatever the case may be, right? So I'll try to put the session next week. I mean, not next week, rather next year, where we are going to talk about this. I was talking about next week, we're going to have a cybersecurity. It's a session that deals primarily with the security-related matters. And then, of course, from there, we will also build up so that next year, we're going to have more sessions. Remember, as I said, we talked about cloud, BI, blockchain, and of course, other friends who are with us here. Do you have any questions? I think, yes, you see, our guys, our guests are having diverse skills with regard to the entrepreneur-related matters and all that. I think we are approaching the end. We should be closing up now. Just wanted to get from you guys, is there any question that you have for us? Yeah. So, and then so we are looking to get some feedback. I'm looking to get some feedback from you friends in terms of what you want to in future, what do you want us to touch on. Today we just touched the high level overview around software development, but as they explained, it's a very broad environment, and I wish to get your feedback in terms of what do you want to maybe we can focus on going forward. Yeah. So if there's no any other question, I like to really thank our friends who they came here. They gave us this opportunity to ask them some questions, more so to give us the direction in terms of where from here. And yeah, I think we should be fine to go. And as I said, I'm looking forward to get your feedback in terms of what do we need to do going forward. And then I think we should be good to go. Tsepo and Mababa, your last one from your side.
Yeah, I'll get in first because Tsepo is my senior. Actually, he used to be my mentor at varsity. So yeah. So I think for me, thanks Motlokwe, and thanks for guys who attended, and also thanks to Dixon for the great app Imbizo. And I think a week ago I didn't know about it, and then today I'm amazed at what it can do. And yeah, thank you very much, colleagues.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, also from my side, I'd like to thank everyone and the opportunity, Motlokwe, so I think this is where the start, to unlock opportunities, to educate, so, but what I want to comment is that, look, we are in the right direction, technology, software development is the right direction that we are taking. Perhaps we need to have more of these engagements, to help one another, but also it's critical that we continue building systems, softwares, like what we see now, we have Imbizo. So this is very exciting that we also have our own softwares, that we actually build, not that we just use softwares, from, especially I'll comment on from international companies, It's very important that we build our own Facebook, our own WhatsApp and so forth. That's more important, especially now in this technology space. There is that drive in government to actually have local softwares. Nothing is guaranteed, as you've seen with the COVID. So we need to build our own solutions, because when the opportunity comes, we must have those solutions ready, available, for us to be able to move forward. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much for the advices, friends. And then from our friends who joined, yes, I see here Silas is saying indeed he's currently doing a ethical hacking. Is not yet in the other side of the road. So thank you friends for joining. I'm not sure if there is any last word from you guys who joined us, or even from Dixon, if there is any. And all that, then I must invite you friends to go and check on our YouTube channel. I'll write the name here. Just say online Bootcamp with Motlokwe, right? If you go there, you are going to find the session, the session that we talked about last week. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, Tabang, indeed, I think the key is really about us doing the business. We don't want us to talk about this for the sake of talking about this, or just programming for the sake of developing. So that's we are taking that seriously, and I'm hoping that next year I'm going to have people like Mababa, Tsepo, and Dixon and other colleagues who can come and really practicalize this into saying, how do I make this in business or make it operational? And of course, touching the issue that you talked about, how do you make, maybe the question, how do I make a contract with a developer, for example? They talk about maybe you can do partnership, and then other thing they talked about, maybe patent this thing, have ownership of this intellectual property around that. So yes, there's a lot of there's a lot to learn, but I'm really confident that we laid the good foundation today. We must just build on top of this foundation. Thank you very much, and God bless with your careers. And indeed, we are going for the festive now. Let's take care out there. COVID is still around. Let's wash our hands, social distance, and wear our mask. Thank you very much, friends. Keep well. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye. Dixon, maybe you can just remain behind, and then we will talk. Yeah. Thank you, friends. I'll stop recording.